will talk about my favorite topics.
The extension headers.
Yes.
Good morning. I want to talk about extension headers. Should not be a technical talk, more a political talk. So let's see what discussion comes out of this. We see that extension headers are filtered in the internet. We have excellent work and presentation being done on this. Jen Linkova presented at the RIPE 69 meeting in London, and there's a lot of work done by Fernando Gond. And we find that extension headers are filtered in the network. But for some reason, we have no real idea why. There are many, many reasons. It could be lack of knowledge. Service providers just have no idea. Enterprise LIRs have no idea. Enterprise admins have no idea. They have security concerns. Maybe have real security concerns or just a bad feeling. If you have real security concerns, you can read RFCs or you can talk to someone. But if you have a bad feeling, nothing can help. You might have a business requirement to filter. You might have slow hardware. If you look in the mailing list, there's always discussion about this veteran router 6500 from Cisco. Some say it broken, some say it is well designed, others say bring it out of your network. Well, there is slow hardware, could be slow hardware path, so people are filtering to protect their hardware. Maybe RFC 6564, which defines a uniform header format, helps a bit to get better hardware in place. Then we have got all these middle boxes. You've got load balancers, security appliances, firewalls. A few years ago, when I still worked at a content provider called Strato in Germany, one of the load balancers dropped fragmented packets. Well, it was a bug. It was hard to find, and it was hard to convince the manufacturer of this box to fix it. And some firewalls don't know about these extension headers. Well, we have all seen this. So when we think about why are these extension headers filtered, I would like to group the extension headers into two groups. So we have the ones with the obvious use cases and the ones with the not so obvious use cases, where nobody really knows what these things are used for. Start with the obvious ones. Fragmentation. Everyone understands the use case. Is one use case. We need the fragmentation. You can be a friend of fragmentation, or maybe you are not a friend of fragmentation. There is valid use of fragmentation. There is invalid use of fragmentation if you try to evade RA guard in your local network or anything else. So there are use cases, or there is one use case, and everyone can understand this use case. We have got the headers that are used for encryption. Fundamentally important. We have this encryption, we need encryption, otherwise we can't install business trust, we can't have data protection. We have a trend going into encryption with HTTPS, but there is a lot of encryption in IPsec, and we need these headers, and everyone understands why we have these headers. But that is not true for the next few headers I want to talk about. We have got the hop-by-hop header. The hop-by-hop header makes each and every router on the way to look at this packet. It is used for RSVP, one of the legitimate use cases. But I would use it internally in my network. So if someone from the outside world sends me an RSVP packet, I would drop it. Because my customers may not reserve any bandwidth in my network. And the customers of my customers as well. So the providers, if they don't filter this header, have to look at it and they don't want to use it. They could ignore it. But maybe this is a special function in their router. So I would prefer to filter this from the outside. And the hop-by-hop header is used for multicast, but just in the local network. So this is nothing about filtering. We know that this must not go through the internet. So this hop-by-hop header is seldomly used. We have got the destination option header. This destination option header is used for mobile IPv6. This is, as far as I know, the one and only use case we have. So transit providers should just forward this packets with these headers because they have nothing to do with it. It is for the destination. Filtering might even be extra work. But if you have a firewall administrator who has a bad feeling about security, has no knowledge about this header, he might say, okay, I'd rather drop it because I don't know what this thing is doing to my network. And if no mobile IPv6 is deployed in the destination network should drop this, because then it could be a security issue. Then we have got this fantastic routing header. One of the options that were deprecated, option 0. So option 2 again is for mobile IPv6. And if you're not using mobile IPv6, maybe you want to drop this beast. Option 4 is for segmentation routing. We heard about this during the panel. It's still under development. I don't know when providers start deploying this. Today, if I would get a routing header with option 4, I have no real idea what to do with it. Lack of knowledge, a bad feeling, I would drop it. So we have many extension headers, 5 or 6 of them, and the way to extend a protocol via extension headers is a very, very good idea, because we are flexible for the future, but nobody is using it apart from fragmentation and encryption. So we use the fragmentation header and this ESP and AH header. Bandwidth reservation is done internally in my network, so I can filter it at the outside, and I think it will be done. Multicast is just on the local link, so nothing to filter there. Mobile IPv6, if I don't use it, I have to filter it. I should filter it. So please don't expect these headers to be forwarded in the network. So have we got more use cases? IPv6 was specified as it is today some 17 years ago, and the development phase was the years before that. So we have got 20 years of extension headers, and we have got 1 use case for the destination header. We have got 2 use cases for the hop-by-hop header. And I think if we have not more use cases, then everyone will filter. When I prepare training for IPv6 and I prepare the slides for the extension headers, I know what to say about the fragmentation header and the security, the encryption headers. But yeah, what do I tell the guys in the audience during the training about the other headers? I have no real idea. I have to tell them, well, nobody really knows what to do with it. So if we cannot provide more use cases, everyone will filter. So as a conclusion, and that should maybe open a discussion, if we don't use these extension headers, there are nearly dead technology. And that technology is filtered because nobody knows what these things do to our network. If they are used internally, well, then any test from the outside will fail, because if you try to send through the network of a service provider, it will be filtered because they just use it internally. Maybe providers filter headers, maybe the destination option header, because they don't know what to do, but they should not. Yes, I know, they should not do that. Then we have to educate them. And we need more use cases, and then the ISPs will learn to use these extension headers. We have more and more enterprises behaving like ISPs for their internal customers. They have to be educated as well. But if we have no use cases, this is nearly dead technology. And then I think it should be filtered. And I'm curious what you in the audience have as ideas for new use cases that we can have, or what you think of a technology that is nearly unused 20 years, and today we expect this technology to be in hardware, to be in software, and to be in the mind of the system and network administrators. Thanks so far. Let's open the discussion, please.
Great. We have 5 minutes. I'm afraid we might need more than this because we've been discussing it for a long time, but let's try to...
Yeah, you can't finish up a 20-year-old discussion in 5 minutes. I know that.
Any questions, comments? What? I just can't believe that.
Wait, I have. I have something. No, it's not because I'm supposed to say something if nobody else does. Benedikt Stockerbrand, Stepladder 18 working group chair and whatever. There's one major problem with the extension headers, which is that they're not appearing in a fixed order. There is some shoulds and whatever in the RFCs, but it's not entirely fixed in what order they should appear, and that makes it tremendously painful to sort these things out. Yes, I only learned accidentally, but it's shoulds, and I think it was from a presentation Fernando Gont gave some time, and that makes it really hard to deal with them properly in hardware. That's a major screw up from like 20 years ago, which should probably, but well, it must probably be cleaned up. Uppercase must. That makes it really hard because from an ISP point of view, I'd say I pass any packet people send me unless it actually disturbs my service. But it's completely different at an enterprise level, and eventually it means yes, we should, or the ITF, so it's their fault, of course. They should clean up whatever we have and deprecate whatever we don't need. But as Chris already pointed out, we have to provide operator input to the ITF on that. Yeah. So yes, this is really important, and I'm also quite surprised that nobody else wants to talk about it. Apparently nobody understands these headers. Okay, now I've talked too much already. By Jens, look.
I can imagine.
Anybody else?
I can imagine the discussion at a hardware vendor when the protocol guys come and say, "Hey, we have to build new hardware for extension headers. Does anyone use it?" Asks management. No, but they're in the standard. Let's invest a few million in ISIC and development. So I think the vendors will not support it properly if there are no use cases.
Yeah, and one more thing, and that's where the problem is. So especially we take companies like Cisco, which use very, very weak CPUs because they do everything that's performance critical in hardware, that opens a potential attack vector for denial of service attacks. And that's where things get scary, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Comment?
No?
Yeah. Okay, so I'd like to comment that we're talking about use cases, right? But I'm pretty sure that actually there are more use cases, we just don't know about them, because I know that some people doing interesting stuff in the internal network. So I'm pretty sure they might talk to vendors and ask them for a proper support. Secondly, like 2 years ago, I had no idea about what kind of usage we might have for routing header, and now look, we have segment routing, right? So I strongly against the position, nobody using them, so let's deprecate this stuff, because we might come with proper usage. It's been a lot of ideas, actually, how can you use extension header for different things. And my last comment is, I look in the ETC protocol file, right? A lot of protocol listed there, and I wouldn't be surprised if I try to reach some destination using most of them protocols, and then will be filtered, but I do expect them to be filtered at quite close to the destination, when network administrator and security people apply their policy, normally by permit what I need, deny everything else basis. That's perfectly fine. My host is not using destination header, so I'm filtering it out. I would be very surprised, unpleasantly surprised, if I see some transit networks are doing this. So that's why we basically try to do some measurements and see how much of this it's actually normal security policy and how much of it is something I've been doing wrong. And from my perspective, first of all, and the last thing, and my data, and I think it's close to Fernando got, is that as you increase the size of the header, the drop rate increase up to like from 20% to 70%, right? Yep. So I suspect might be related to the hardware problem, and I do hope we're going to fix it over time. Natalie?
Hello. Yes, I could not agree more with you, Jen. When I also teach IPv6 courses, I spend a serious amount of time explaining people that when people designed IPv6, the amount of addresses was because we have no idea how they will be used in the future. And that is a whole new philosophy, basically, that you give a /56 to a home user or /48. because we don't know how things will look in the next 15, 20 years. And I think that philosophy was also built in the design of IPv6 with these extension headers. Let's put them there because we don't know why yet. And that is more a philosophy thing that we have to get used to with IPv6, that we don't know yet how we will use things in the future of the internet with a whole new possibilities that we will have. So although I do see why people are thinking about filtering them now, for security reasons, etc., I'm not sure how bad that necessarily is at this point, and how bad things will be when we find a use case for them to then tell people to not filter them anymore. Because I think that's where the problem will be eventually, that when we find use cases for them, that by that time so many people have been filtering them for so long that it will be again an issue to am I saying something weird? Oh, okay, yeah. Exactly, so yeah, that's where I think the problem will be, that we in the end have to reverse people to tell people not to do certain things again. Thanks.
The idea to have these extension headers is fantastic, and I'm not going to deprecate them or to advise anyone to deprecate them. But we still, if we have newcomers to the protocol, and there are many newcomers to the protocol, they don't see any use case, and they fear these headers and have no idea what they are doing to their network, so they tend to filter them. And we have many, many newcomers, and we want to have newcomers to this protocol because we want to have it widely used. So thanks for the discussion. Thanks for the input. Maybe some more input?
We have two people, and then I'm going to cut the line because we are running out of time. Eric?
Erik Bryce. Yeah, so the equipment, for instance, that we have, it supports the extension headers. ACL depth for the extension headers is between, it's either 3 or 4 extension headers, and after that it just cannot, you know, the ACL just doesn't go that far into the packets. So that basically provides an attack surface, because you know that whatever they do after that, you know they can get through the ACLs, which is scary. You know, how would you go about and you know, they say, well, we'll drop anything which is extension header 4, 5, 6, or and beyond, or what's going to happen there? You know, what's your view on that? And do we actually need equipment that actually goes into extension header ACL for number 5, number 6, number 7? Because you know, we just got the kit. We're really glad that it actually does V6.
Maybe we should have a restriction in the protocol that says something like 5 or 6 headers. It's the most that we can accept. Maybe we should have, or will have, clearly defined use cases where we say, okay, this use case needs 3 headers. 2 for the protocol, for the use case, and maybe 1 for fragmentation, so that we then can define a use case and a security rule for that. But having 15 or more headers, what's possible today, is not okay with the protocol, so that should be filtered. I have more questions than answers, to be honest. Sorry, like most of us. But if you have hardware that can filter that and can do that in hardware, well, that's fine. Many don't have this hardware, and they filter because they just have no idea what they are doing. I think you know what you're doing there, but most of the newcomers don't know. They have no use cases. They don't see the sense of this, and say, well, drop them.
I have a very quick comment. I'm actually quite glad that you mentioned this situation, because there is a draft which suggests that your firewall should be able to make the distinguish between situation. It is not protocol X, and I know what kind of protocol it is, and it's not protocol X, and I have no idea what is it because I could not look deep inside. So if people think it's a good idea to have something like that, yeah, we keep working on it. Jan?
Yeah, George. So yeah, basically Eric stole my stole my question. Yeah, just to add to this, I'm really annoyed that people just filter out the packets if there is an extension header and don't look really deep into them, look into the values and the numbers in the extension headers, or even the extension header chain if it's valid or invalid. It annoys me that people filter just if there's an extension header, drop it. You know, I was running around with mobile IPv6 like five years ago, and if this would be the case 5 years ago, the majority of my traffic would be just dropped, and I would have no idea if that works or not. So please, whoever is filtering just based on if there is extension header or not, stop doing it.
Okay, so I'm afraid we're out of time for this discussion, but I'm pretty sure we can continue in the coffee break. So thank you very much.
Thank you
For bringing this topic again. Next presenter. Want to tell us about,